All right, I am here with Jason Matthews, the designer of Twilight Struggle, which was 6 years the top board game in the world. He's very humble about it though, so don't try to get him to not be humble. So I'd like to ask you about what do you think about NATO from our channel making a 12-hour strategy guide all about your game?
I just take from that whole experience, first of all, of course, I'm extraordinarily grateful, but I assume that you don't have the same sort of laws about mental illness in Canada that we have in the United States.
We let it get out of control.
Yeah, clearly.
Yes, absolutely. So, yeah, it's a little bit insane, but NATO is so passionate about this game that it's wonderful we got a chance to talk with you today. So we'll find out a little bit more about you. When Twilight Struggle was the top game in the world for such a long period of time, as a designer, how does that make you feel?
I mean, it was so unexpected. So, of course, it's immensely gratifying to design something that a bunch of people are enjoying. And I really design for myself. Like, if I think a game is fun, then that's enough. So it's neat to have so many people agree with that conclusion. Like, I was enjoying Twilight Struggle when I was playtesting it and running it through its motions, and then when people discovered it, they also enjoy it, so that's fantastic.
Now, there are ups and downs in the board gaming world, so how did it feel when Pandemic Legacy snuck up above and knocked it off the top of the pedestal?
It honestly doesn't bother me at all. On the way up the Board Game Geek charts, I passed so many games that I love and admire, I felt mildly guilty about it. You know what I mean? Like, Paths of Glory, El Grande, all these kind of classic Euro and war games that have been important parts of shaping my understanding of gaming and my enjoyment of gaming. And to see my game go by them, I'm like, I don't know, Twilight Struggle's better than that. But it happened.
Luckily, you don't get to decide.
Exactly.
They all do. So,
Indeed.
but they certainly felt that way for a very long time, and I know there are people out there who still do feel that way.
And Matt's game, I give Matt's game a ton of credit because Matt's game introduced kind of a new genre to the whole hobby. There had been existing cooperative games before, but he really made it a thing, and that thing not only was a great game in and of itself, but it brought all of these new faces to the hobby.
Yes,
people who liked this more cooperative style of game and less competitive game like I typically design. So kudos to Matt for introducing this genre, and I think Pandemic deserves all the laurels it received.
And if it had to be any game to do it, that was a wonderful game.
Indeed.
To have it step up.
Super inventive. So yeah, no complaints here.
Absolutely. Can you tell me about your best board gaming memory? What's an experience that you've really had? I think most of us in the hobby, there's a moment that crystallizes our love for the hobby. When was yours? Was it as a child or as an adult? Or
yeah, I'm super lucky to have this memory, and I was so fortunate to be able to tell this to Larry Bond, but I got Axis and Allies. My dad bought it as a whim in 1982 or 3, whatever that Christmas was, and knowing that I was a little nerdy kid and liked history, he bought it for me. My dad was like a man's man, brick mason,
right.
And I'm this nerdy lawyer type. But that game was our bond, and we played it every single weekend for years and years and years. So that game really...
so it was an era of gaming.
It was an era of gaming, and it provided some real foundation to my relationship with my father that I probably would not have had without that game.
And that's amazing that you were able to come full circle and let the designer know that. So.
Yeah. For sure.
That's fantastic. Now let's talk about modern games. Is there anything in the last year, 2025, or that you've been playing that just lit your mind up and you said, that is really cool, I really love that, or I need more of that?
The game that I thought has had a ton of innovation, and I'm super excited to see that Fort Circle will be republishing it, was Land and Freedom, which is a game about the Spanish Civil War, which is actually what Ananda and I were originally going to design we did Twilight Struggle, but we started out trying to do a Spanish Civil War game, and that game does all of these super interesting things by abstracting out the fascist player in the Spanish Civil War and just focusing on the infighting on the Republican side.
Oh, interesting.
And no one has ever told the Spanish Civil War from that lens.
Quite that close?
Yeah, that close, but that really, the story of the Spanish Civil War has much more to do with the fact that the Republican side, the left, was not able to get its act together. And I think that game does a fantastic job illustrating it. So it would be on that short list of games that I wish I had designed instead of somebody else.
Awesome. So I'm going to throw a challenge out to you here. So Tom Shaw famously was having lunch with Jim Dunnigan, and Jim Dunnigan said, I can make a game on anything, and Tom Shaw said, oh really? Okay, and on a serviette he wrote out and he said, great, make a game on somebody lost in the woods. And Outdoor Survival, the Avalon Hill game, was born from that conversation. He pulled it off and it worked.
Yeah.
So I'd like to do that challenge with you right now.
Holy Moses.
And so the topic I want to throw out to you is make a game based on, in, around, or interested in Canada.
Oh my gosh. Canada has amazing history. That's not even that's like child's play. One of my favorite CDGs, it's not terribly recent, but it's a legal CDG, and it's about the trial of Louis Riel, which is somebody no one in the United States knows anything about.
Not at all.
But the trial is hyper interesting because there's these two kind of insurgencies in Canada against something Americans don't know anything about. And then there's this treason trial of Louis Riel, and it really pits the kind of French-speaking Catholics versus the new Protestant English overlords. And so it's such an amazing legal context for a card-driven game about the resolution of this trial. And so a great game about Canadian history has already been made, but I would happily accept that challenge. I think Canada has an underexplored historical context.
Fantastic. Well, I mean, you came up with an answer pretty quick there about something already awesome, so I'd look forward to seeing what you can do with that.
For sure.
And let's end with what's next for Jason Matthews.
So Jason Carr and I are together on South Asian Monsoon, and that obviously more immediately than that, we have the 20th anniversary Hall of Fame edition of Twilight Struggle. Ooh. It has all new art, all new, we've collected every conceivable errata. Everything will be streamlined and beautiful, and it will be honestly a world-class production. I'm very proud of the investment GMT has made into it, and I think people who are fans of the game are going to be wowed.
I was going to say, how do you improve on perfection? But I guess there's minutia that you can tweak up. So I'll really look forward to actually seeing what you guys do with that, and I'm sure Nate will be really excited.
Yeah, for sure.
So thank you so much for taking the time to meet with us.
My pleasure.
Yeah, this is Jason Matthews. Now get out there, get gaming, and be legendary.